Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this enlightening session. My name is Mutiat Olatunji. I'm a private trust specialist with FBN Trustees, and this afternoon I'll be taking us on what estate planning is, the genesis of estate planning, and ultimately how women can get involved in estate planning. So I'll start by asking, when I say estate planning, how many people even understand what estate planning means? If you take a survey on the street and you ask people about estate planning, I can bet you that 5 out of every 10 people you ask will tell you that estate planning probably relates to properties or real estate or one estate somewhere. So their understanding relates to real properties basically. So today I'm going to be addressing where you are with respect to your understanding of estate planning, when you should get involved in estate planning, how to get involved, what you can do to get involved, who you should speak to when you decide to start getting your estate fixed, and why you should get involved. So I'll just play a quick video that summarizes entirely what I'll be discussing today.
Mr. Stelgreen, your rent is to be paid out of the trust for 1 year.
That's all?
Raina's share actually defaults to Tariq, de facto creating a 2/3, 1/3 split in favor of Tariq. He gets the property, the shares in the nightclubs, including Truth, and the watch collection. You do not inherit. James designed it this way. Unfortunately, you do not have access to the life insurance, the stocks, or the bonds, the entire portfolio. Actually, Tariq, just to note, you don't inherit right away. All of your money is held in trust until you complete a 4-year degree from university with at least a 3.5 GPA. After that, the floodgates open. But until you graduate under those conditions, you don't get a cent.
He's dead and he's still trying to control my life.
I gave him 3 kids, I stood by him through prison, and I get nothing?
Mrs. Stelgreen, your rent is to be paid out of the trust for 1 year.
That's all?
Raina's share actually defaults to Tariq, de facto creating a 2/3, 1/3 split in favor of Tariq. He gets the property, the shares in the nightclubs, including Truth, and the watch collection. You do not inherit. James designed it this way. Unfortunately, you do not have access to the life insurance, the stocks, or the bonds, the entire portfolio. Actually, Tariq, just to note, you don't inherit right away. All of your money is held in trust until you complete a 4-year degree from university with at least a 3.5 GPA. After that, the floodgates open. But until you graduate under those conditions, you don't get a cent.
He's dead and he's still trying to control my life.
I gave him 3 kids, I stood by him through prison, and I get nothing?
Mrs. Stelgreen, your rent is to be paid
Okay, so
out
the
of the
video
trust.
we just watched just summarized in essence what estate planning is. The deceased had passed away. He had a trust, which obviously his family was not aware of. He had decided what would happen and how his son was going to get a share of his own assets. So you can see that the son is not happy. Even his mother-in-law is not happy. And the most aggrieved of all the parties is his wife, because she doesn't get anything. For his son, he had insisted that his son had to study to a particular level and get a particular degree before he could have access to a percentage of the funds. So basically, estate planning is all about putting a structure in place during one's lifetime for the purpose of wealth management, preservation, and ultimately transfer from generation to generation. So I'll now go on to speak briefly about the arms of estate planning, which I call the trees of estate planning. So it's either you die testate or you die intestate. What this means is that it's either you have a plan, an estate plan in place, or you don't have an estate plan in place. So what does intestate mean? Intestate basically means that a person passed on without any of the estate planning so in place for the management and preservation of his assets after his demise. What happens when you fail to have an estate plan in place is that your ultimate beneficiaries don't get benefits, or they don't reap the fruit of all the hard work you've done during your lifetime. What it means is that at the back of your head, while you were still alive, you intended that, okay, so 50% of my assets goes to my son, and another 50% goes to my daughter, or my wife, or my siblings. However, you did not crystallize all your intention into a document. The best you did was to have it at the back of your mind. And like they say, the devil himself knows not the intention of man. So when you pass, nobody knows your intention. Nobody knows what you planned. Nobody knows what your wishes are. And this is one of the pitfalls of not having a proper estate plan in place. So your family, while still grieving and going through the trauma of losing their loved ones, they also have to battle with who gets what. How do we ensure that the kids, if you have minors, are properly taken care of? How do we, the wife or your husband is probably bothered about, oh, so how do I ensure that the family members don't come and take everything that my spouse or my partner has worked for over the years? So I'm not going to go into some real life events that we have seen in recent times on the danger of not having an estate plan or having a poor estate plan in place. So like we all know, there's the school, the Lekki school, the two brothers at loggerheads in court. The school is suffering because their mom did not have a proper structure in place, or maybe she had in her head or in her mind, but however, she did not crystallize her intention and that structure into paper. She didn't put pen to paper. You also have the Ikoyi building collapse where the wife and the brothers of the late owner, they're at loggerheads as well. Everybody's scrambling to get whatever it is they can get. This also is as a result of the fact that there was no estate plan in place. And one thing we have to have at the back of our mind is that not having an estate plan, the damage that it causes, it can go from generation to generation. So we have people in court for 5 decades and counting. The assets will have deteriorated. The person that harnessed the wealth and put everything together, he had a vision, he had a focus. However, because he did not put a proper plan in place, we have people fighting for decades. The main beneficiaries will have passed on, their kids will have passed on, so monies will have been lost in the process. You're paying professionals to just go back and forth. And ultimately, the beneficiaries of the estate are unable to reap the fruits of the estate. So that's what happens when you don't have a proper estate plan in place, which we call dying intestates. So the flip side of it is being testate. Testate means having an estate plan in place. This helps you to preserve, safeguard, and ensure that you transfer your wealth smoothly from one generation to another or to your named beneficiaries. There are different ways of having a testate plan in place. So I'm going to go into the estate planning tools. So I'll categorize it broadly into two. So for Muslims, we have the Islamic tools. And for the non-Muslims or the conventional tools, we have the conventional tools that you can use. So I'll discuss briefly on the Islamic estate planning tool. So you have the Al-Wasiyah, which is the will. The Al-Wasiyah basically means preparing your will in line with Islamic injunction. So what the Quran says in chapter 4 is that 2/3 of your estates must be given to specific beneficiaries and in specific portions. So that's pretty straightforward because the Quran has set out how you're supposed to do it. However, we've seen instances where people fail to even keep an inventory of their assets. What this means is that the Quran has set out how these assets should be distributed. However, your family members don't even know the assets you have. You have minor children. They don't know who should be their guardians, who should take custody of the assets that belong to your minor children pending when they are in the age of majority. If there's a dispute with respect to the assets, how is it resolved? Do you want your Islamic disputes going to the conventional courts, or do you have an Islamic panel in mind, an Islamic cleric? What plan are you putting in place to ensure that, yes, the Quran has said this is how the church should be distributed, but you still have your own, you still have to tie your camel, so to say. And you have the waqf. The waqf is just a trust. So you can set up a trust for any reason. You can set up a trust for charity purposes. You can set up a family trust. You can just set up a trust for whatever you want. But at the same time, you have to have at the back of your mind that your waqf must be for a good purpose. And you have the iba. Iba means gift. So as humans, you can gift anybody any assets during your lifetime, or you can even stipulate in your will that 1/3 you can give it out as a gift. So that summarizes the Islamic estate planning tools. Now to the conventional planning tools, you have the wills. A will is a document that is prepared by someone during his lifetime, prepared, properly executed, and lodged with the appropriate probate registry. I'm emphasizing lodged because we've seen instances where a person had a will, he just signed it, and it is somewhere in his house, it was not properly lodged. that also creates a problem. So that is almost similar to not having an estate plan in place. So please, for everybody that has a will, kindly ensure that your will is properly executed, and you have your lawyers or your professionals or your trustees, which is one of the services that we offer as FBN Quest Trustees, will help you lodge it and ensure that upon your demise, we'll bring it out and the normal post-demise process will take place. The will, there are so many importance of having a will. So for example, people say that, oh, I don't have a lot of assets, but they forget that, yes, you might not have real estate, but what happens to the monies in your bank? What happens to your investments? What happens to your shares? What happens to your RSA? You've worked so hard, you've toiled so out for all of these, and just because you don't own a physical property, you believe that you don't have anything. For we ladies, we have jewelries, we have bags, we have luxurious shoes. Do you want this to go to your children? All of this has to be contained in your will. This is most important because for the monies in your account and for your RSA, your next of kin or your beneficiaries cannot just walk into the bank and withdraw those money. The bank will not grant them access to those funds if they don't have a grant of probate or a letters of administration. And in the long run, you don't want a situation whereby your family members get letters of administration and they don't annex those monies for the use of your beneficiaries. So it is very important to have a document in place, whether or not you have real properties, whether or not you own billions or millions. The most important thing is to have that document in place, because believe you me, there are two things that are certain in life. You pay your taxes and you will die. So whether or not you decide to talk about it, it is going to happen. And the earlier we begin to plan towards it, the better for us, especially for our beneficiaries and our children when we have minors. So the other estate planning tool is a trust. So a trust is an arrangement where one person agrees to hold the property, monies, shares, stock in trust for another person. The other person is called the settlor or the grantor. So the way a trust works, a trust is highly confidential. It is an agreement between the trust company, the trustees, and the settlor. There's no third party privy to whatever is in your trust. You can name your beneficiaries. You can even acquire assets in the name of your trust. That is one thing that most people don't know. So you have this property that you're eyeing somewhere, maybe in Lekki or on the mainland, that you really want to buy. Your intention is that your children are the ones that benefit from this property in the long run. However, your kids are minors. Minors cannot own property. You also do not want to buy the property in your personal name because you are thinking, oh, so what happens when I pass this on? It forms part of my estate. You can secure that asset for your children by acquiring it in the name of the trust. What this simply means is that you buy the property in the name of a trust, the trust company manages the property, and your trust deed, which is the document between the trustees and the settlor, states explicitly who the beneficiaries of these assets are. You can say, oh, I have one property in VGC, I intend this to go to my first child. I have another one in Lekki. The trustees, they are holding it for the benefit of my second child. When my child attains the age of 13, please transfer ownership of that property to him. In the interim, all the rental income from the property, please use it towards ensuring that my child gets good education, my child keeps up with his lifestyle and all of that. So with your trust, you can name as many beneficiaries as you want. You can have a trust just for charitable purpose. You can have an endowment trust. You can have a children education trust. This is most important to we women. We want to ensure that whether we are there or not, whether it is death or not, whether it is incapacitation, like the other speaker spoke about, what if I can't pay my child's school fees tomorrow, God forbid, like we all say. But we need to take care of instances like that. Do you have a backup fund to ensure that if for any reason you are not cash liquid, you don't have money at your disposal, your child will continue in the same school that he or she is attending now. Your child will be able to keep up with that same standard. If you've exposed your children to a particular lifestyle, I'm sure you don't want a situation whereby your ability or inability to get access to quick cash will hinder them from continuing that lifestyle. So you can set up a children education trust. This trust will cover everything and everything you want with respect to your children. Medical needs, if you have medical needs, if you have children with special needs, this trust can come in place and work perfectly for them. So yeah, I'm sure most people will be asking me, oh, so a trust sounds better. I think I'll prefer a trust to a will. But what we say is it's best to have both documents. I've spoken about the importance of having your will. especially because of your personal accounts, your RSAs and the likes. And I've also mentioned of utmost importance is the trust. So now, I've spoken generally about trust. I'm sure everybody's question to me now is, how can women get involved? How can women get involved? We've gotten to a stage where women are breaking the barriers. We are making waves. We are out there. We are breaking grounds financially. We are just everywhere. We are all over the place, and the society is beginning to recognize our importance. There's no other better time to start planning than now. And there are lots of examples on why women really need to plan. We've seen instances of a brother trying to kill his sister over his father's assets. There was even one where the brother, I think, stabbed the sister in her eyes, and she more or less went blind and all of that. We've also seen the story of the former banker who was making waves, and she passed, and her siblings, everybody, they were tussling. The case is still in court. You have money in her account. Nobody can touch it because there was no estate plan in place. That's on the Nigerian side. So on the flip side, I'm sure we all know Whitney Houston. She passed away. But the good thing about her was that she had a proper structure. She knew what she wanted, and she put the tools in place to achieve that. So she had named her child as the sole beneficiary of her estate, and she had at the back of her mind that, oh, so what happens when my child passes before annexing all this wealth, or what happens where she passes and she doesn't have a child? So she created a flip side to it and said, if her child for any reason should pass without a child or anybody to benefit from her, the estate should move to her mother and her siblings. That was a perfect plan. And we have on the other end someone who passed at the age of 76. At the time of her demise, nobody knew she had a will. This goes back to the importance of ensuring that you speak to a professional to draft your will for you, and also, most importantly, ensuring that same is properly lodged. She had a will. Nobody knew that she had a will. Family members were already all over the place trying to see what they could get for themselves. Then all of a sudden, it surfaced that she had 2 handwritten wills somewhere. And I think more recently, they realized that, oh, she didn't even have 2. She actually had 4. But the bad part was that the subsequent 2, they were not even executed. So everybody's back in court now saying, oh, how do we go from here? What do we go from here? How do we get what? This, in the long run, it defeats the essence of working so hard. It defeats the essence of toiling so hard, working day and night to put all these structures in place and not having a proper plan. So my question to you is, what's the essence of trying to build all of this? What's the essence of trying to become the best at what you do? What's the essence of trying to be top at work? And even if it's a business, what's the essence of all of this if you don't have a structure in place for generational wealth transfer? It doesn't add up. We've worked, yes, we'll enjoy this money during our lifetime. Yes, everybody wants to enjoy, everybody wants to flex, but we cannot take away the fact that we have people who are dependent on us. So even if you don't have children, you have relatives, you have siblings, you have parents, you have family members that are dependent on you. They look up to you almost every month for their monthly stipend and all of that. What plan are you putting in place to ensure that if anything happens to you, we say death, we say incapacitation, these people are still adequately taken care of without anybody being at loggerheads with anybody? This in it is the essence of estate planning. So now, bringing it down finally, how can women get involved? I think the very first way you can get involved is by creating a plan. So we've spoken about a will and we've spoken about a trust. How many of us have a will? How many of us have seen the importance of having a will? How many of us are not saying, oh, I don't have time, or I don't have enough assets, or my kids are still young, or I'm still young, I don't want to talk about debt? Having an estate plan in place goes beyond debt. It's just a matter of you taking care of your beneficiaries and also yourself. So please, the first step is to ensure that you create a plan. Have a trust to cater to your assets. For assets that you feel you don't want to include in your will, you are acquiring more properties, you are acquiring more investments, more shares. You can put that in a trust, and the trust will perfectly take care of whatever needs that you have. You should also have a will. You should, as a matter of importance, have a will. Also, you should, as a matter of importance, reach out to us at FBN Trustees. We are here to help you plan your inheritance without hassle, be it will, be it trust. We have track record. This is what we've been doing for years. So please, my fellow women out there, this is an appeal to you to please, as a matter of priority, get out a note and a paper now and start scribbling down all the assets that you have, the shares you have, who you want to give it to. Just have an inventory for starters so that when you get to the stage of speaking to a professional, it is easier for you to do that. Aside having a structure, I cannot overemphasize the need to ensure that your partner also has a structure. For some people, they started out life acquiring assets jointly with their spouse, or even in the name of their spouse alone. So all the assets that you have is in the name of your husband, and you've not really seen the need to have that discussion with your husband because you don't want to bring it up with him. But the truth of the matter is that if your husband doesn't have a proper structure in place, if he has not listed you as a beneficiary to that asset, the mere fact that you probably dropped 50% or 100% of the purchase sum does not automatically make you entitled to that asset if your name does not appear anywhere in any of his estate planning tools. So you have to sit down and start having that discussion with your spouses for assets that you've bought in his name, for assets that you've bought together. You also need to understand when anything happens, what is your spouse's plan for you? You should be a part of that planning. You should be a part of that discussion, and you should start having that discussion now. Apart from ensuring that your spouse or your partner or your loved one has a will or an estate plan in place, it is also important to ensure that this plan is updated from time to time. For example, you had just 2 children before and now you have a 3rd child. You already have an existing estate plan that adequately caters to your 2 children, but you've now forgotten the fact that you have an addition to your family, and that addition also has to be well captured. I'm sure you don't want any child or any beneficiary feeling aggrieved in the long run that, oh, mommy or daddy didn't have me in plan or they didn't leave anything for me. So please, birth of a child, demise of a beneficiary, acquisition of new assets, even divorce, if for any reason you have to go through that line of divorce, please, 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 it is important for you to update your estate planning tools. And for the example I gave earlier about having a new child, the first person that comes to my mind is Kobe Bryant. So he had a fantastic estate plan before his demise. However, he had a child and they had not updated that plan to include his child. So when he passed, yes, everybody knew that he had a perfect estate plan, but his wife had to now go to court to ensure that the new child that was left out becomes a beneficiary of his estate. You also have the issue of his mother-in-law feeling that she was not adequately taken care of. So all of that is in the open now and all of that is in the public. So please do yourself a favor today and start something, no matter how little it is. Please just start something. It is never too early and it is never too late to start having these conversations. And these conversations are not just for your benefit, they are for the benefit of your loved ones, like I said. And trust me, to make you sleep better at night, knowing that if anything happens today, I know that my kids are going to be properly taken care of. You are not hoping that, oh, one relative or one brother or one sister somewhere would come to your aid and help your kids or your loved ones. You are going to bed knowing that if anything happens to you, if anything at all happens to you, your investment is secure, your shares are secure, and ultimately your children would not suffer or bear the brunt of your incapacitation or your demise. So I'm available for any questions. So proper planning will allow you to protect yourself and your loved ones. That's the most important thing. Give what you want, to whom you want, when you want it, and in the way you want it. I think these are the most important take home for me. It allows you to give what you want, to whom you want, when you want, and in the way you want. So this way, everything is totally taken care of. It allows you to face less court cases. You don't have to pay lawyers so much for so many things. Your estate taxes too can be better managed and planned when you have a proper structure in place. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, if you want to engage me on the best way or how you want me to hold your hands in planning your estate. We at FBN Trustees, we are more than willing, happy, and ready to help you plan your inheritance without hassle. Thank you very much, and I hope you had an amazing session with me.